All right, well, welcome everybody. I'm John Furukawa from Fresh Consulting, and we are the location host for April 12th's second Pub Talk with OEN, and I'm joined here with Jo Brickman from Vertue Lab and Juan Barraza from Vertue Lab. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us. It's a pleasure.
Great to be here.
100%. All right, well, I have some questions for you. I'm sure our viewers are interested to know what Vertue Lab is. Maybe, Jo, you can kick us off since I think you've been there for a minute.
Yes. Yeah. Vertue Lab is a nonprofit. We've been around since 2007. And our mission is really around addressing the climate crisis by making direct investments in and providing wraparound support to climate tech innovators and startup companies. We do that through Climate Impact Fund and a robust series of entrepreneurship support programs that my colleague Juan Barraza runs. So I'll hand it off to Juan.
Thank you. We recognize that in order to support entrepreneurs, especially those that focus on climate tech, it requires a lot of investment. It requires a lot of investment and a lot of patience, because hardware-driven enterprises with deep science require a longer time to mature and to scale and go to market. Where traditional startups and software is 1 to 5 years for them to be able to go to market and scale and exit, for a hardware-driven startup could be 10 to 12 years. So the work that we do here is we fill the niche for those entrepreneurs that are coming from academia, from the private sector, solving those difficult problems that relate to the climate impact that we all have in our environment.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a huge issue. You know, Fresh Consulting works all the way from the digital side deep into the hardware side ourselves. And, you know, one of the most important questions we have to ask anybody that we're working with that has a long road ahead is, you know, what is their finance situation? How are they being supported and backed? And so often, you know, entrepreneurs end up having to sort of pause their work and to change their attention towards seeking funding. So I've heard from many others in this Portland area about how Vertue Lab is a great supporter. And of course, you also show up as a benefactor to small events and gatherings, and, you know, as a host and a sponsor. So we really appreciate you being here. So why is the topic of making an impact and social responsibility as a business important to your group?
Well, we fundamentally believe that business has to be part of the solution, and that there are economic opportunities that will result from creating a solution to the climate crisis and to other environmental challenges as well. It's not one or the other. We have the opportunity to create the solutions and benefit financially from them as well. And I think that without business at the table, without innovation at the table, we're not going to create long-lasting impact in any case. So it's core to our strategy.
You take impact very seriously, in fact, and you ask your companies to focus on measuring impact. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, certainly. I would say for the first 10 years or so of our history, we really we had a very simple way of looking at impact. We had much more stringent and robust systems for measuring economic impact than we did for environmental impact, because it's so complicated. And climate tech and clean tech are really complicated, and there's a lot of different types of strategies towards creating a positive impact. And so it's hard to get, you know, apples to apples comparisons. And so I think that kind of had scared a lot of folks off from within the clean tech sector from trying to do any measurement. But around 2016, we began to look really seriously. Okay, what would it take if we were to try to really measure what the impact of these companies that we've been supporting would be? And, you know, it took several years of development, but now we're at a place where we have a tool that we use for assessing the potential climate impact of our companies over time. And we coach companies through that process, both in our accelerator program and those companies that are applying for funding from our Climate Impact Fund, and work hand in hand with them to identify what different factors are, and how to quantify their climate impact potential.
That's awesome. So Juan, what are some examples of startups that have successfully integrated social responsibility into their business model itself?
Well, where to start? Joe, I will need a lifeline if I skip some of them. You can think about ESS. They were intentional about designing the energy storage solutions with salt water and carbon to minimize the impact to the environment. You can think about Blade Runner, that is trying to minimize the impact to the environment by generating electricity with wave energy from different water streams. Back in the day when Vertue Lab was starting, D.R. Johnson with innovations, mass timber. When you look at the Portland airport and the beautiful mass timber roof and ceiling that's being put on, was supported and started with the support from Vertue Lab and many other partners. And actually, Joe, could you talk more about that in particular? Because I think it's relevant for today's environment.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting story, and I think speaks to why a nonprofit in particular can be a really powerful part of driving, impact business related economic development. For many years, we heard about, wouldn't it be great if mass timber took off here in Oregon? It's the ideal place for it. We're already a natural resources economy, lots of timber, access to the Pacific Rim, on and on and on about all the reasons why this would be a great place for it. Innovative architectural community, or green building community. But nothing was ever happening, and it really took a concerted effort on the part of our team together with Business Oregon to bring about a tour, basically, of a bunch of different producers in the region that had the kinds of facilities that might be able to be retooled to produce cross-laminated timber. And through, I think, visiting 10 or more different companies, landed with D.R. Johnson being the only one that would step forward and say, we're interested in exploring this. And through that, we provided funding for standing up their first, sort of like test scale production line. And Business Oregon also came in and provided critical funding. We also funded the work at Oregon State University to validate the structural integrity of the product that came out at the end. And through that this enabled them to be the first producers in the United States of cross-laminated timber. And the rest has been history. But it's just an example of where a little nudge from somebody who's not within industry, and not government by themselves, but somebody with a credible third-party view and to help make that happen.
That's a great story. Well, for those who want to see what laminated timber looks like, actually our building has a great deal of wooden structure in it, so come and look and enjoy. Thanks for that. So, well, let's see. Maybe we should have Juan jump back in again with what the role of investors have in supporting and promoting social responsibility in those startups.
It starts with intentionality. I think investors, the new generation of investors jump into climate tech, they need to figure out how to measure their investment with impact rather than just the return on investment in dollars, right? While traditional angel investors or VCs, they look into 5-10x on the return on investment. If they can add one more layer of complexity, impact, right? How that investment helps now to create a meaningful impact around an environment and our communities. An example that often I drawn to is when we go to the supermarket, we see like a designer food where we have fresh, luscious red apples all year round. What we don't think about is that's normal in the US, but when you go in the rest of the world, That's not the norm. So thinking about how we're going to grow more food for everybody, new ways of transportation, electricity, thinking about agriculture, the nitrates that are going to our water streams from growing all the food that we are needing every day. So next generation investors, when they start measuring the impact, not just on the return on investment in dollars, but the impact they're having in communities, people's lives, how they're helping the environment, that will be a new way for them to start making an impact. You look at investors like a Chris Sacca, that he is investing in climate tech because he cares about it, but also he sees the opportunity to be able to have the next wave of companies that will give him the return on investment for his fund. Joe, anything else you want to add?
I guess, I think investors have an opportunity as members of boards of companies as well to play a really important advisory role, to not only screen for impact at the time that they're making the initial investment, but also managing for impact and ensuring that that there are targets, that the performance targets of the company are tied to the impact performance as well, and managing for the growth of their potential for impact over time as well. I think with our investments, we have a term sheet that includes requirements for policies around ESG and diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice for those companies, and it's just one little lever that we have with being in this position to be able to encourage thoughtful culture building on the part of our companies, in addition to strong performance.
Yep, it's great to have the right kind of leverage to make the right kinds of things happen. So, Joe, last one for you. What are some common misconceptions about social responsibility, and how can startups overcome those misconceptions?
Yeah, that it's charity. I think that a common misconception about impact companies are that they're just that they might actually have a lower return on investment, or that's concessionary, or that it's just that the impact is solely for doing good. I think in reality, especially with the real impacts of the climate crisis being borne out as we sit here today, it's going to be table stakes in a matter of years, and for companies to get on board with that and demonstrate that they have the potential to be relevant in a number of years, it's going to be critical.
Thank you. So I think that's the end of the questions for today. Juan, I'm really looking forward to you facilitating our conversation on the 12th, April 12th, here at Fresh Consulting on how to build a business of impact. Really appreciate your time today. Any parting words for our viewers?
It takes a lot of people to help a startup to be successful. We all have a part of that. And it's with Vertue Lab, with the OEN, or with Fresh Consulting, you have a lot of people in the community that are ready to help you. Any up and coming entrepreneur in climate tech or any other sector to be able to launch a company here in Oregon. Come on over, have a conversation with us, have a good time, make new friends, and the rest will take care of it.
And Joe, you want to close this out for our Oregon Entrepreneur Network viewers?
I'll just echo what Juan said. He said it perfectly, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the 12th.
All right. Thanks, everybody.